Mike in my band was like, yo, Reason just came out. My friend Wag has it, I'm buying it. You gotta get it.
What's up? You got your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe, cause today we're gonna be talking about Propellerheads. Reason. What had happened was... So what else has Sweden brought us? The legendary pop group ABBA? The famous actor Dolph Lundgren? You know, Drago and Rocky? If he dies, he dies. And Reason. So Reason was started in 1994. Wow, 1994. What a crazy year. You had hit rap singles like Don't Front, You Know I Got You Open, It's the Original Heads Meeting the Original Crooks, Bucktown. Or I Came to Bring the Pain, Hardcore from the Brain, Let's Go Inside My Astro Plane. Or even Money's Growing Like Grass with the Mass Appeal. Boop, 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 boop. And all the way at the other side of the globe in Sweden, 3 musicians got together and wanted to start a company. 3 guys, Ernest Booz, Marcus Zetterquist, and Peter Jubel. So these 3 guys, the 3 propellers, the 3 propeller heads. Makes you look at the logo a little different now, right? They were 3 musicians who just loved synthesizers. They loved hardware gear and they loved everything about synthesizers. They were crazy for them, to the point they wanted to make a software version, basically a software rack where you can just stack up synthesizers and go to work. So Marcus, the youngest one, started pretty much coding at a young age. Guess how young? Well, I'll tell you. 13. Can you believe that? This guy was coding at 13. Remember the Commodore 64 computer back in the 80s? He was coding on this, making all kind of sounds and everything like that. At 13, I was still buying Spider-Man comics and trying to see who Hulk Hogan was gonna fight at WrestleMania. So he created the software Recycle, which pretty much redefined drum looping at the time. You could change the tempo of a loop without changing the pitch. I know you guys are like, yeah, man, I could do that on my app, on my iPad. Yeah, but this is 1994, okay? This technology was incredible. The software did okay, and you know, through a lot of trial and error, they were still really focused on advancing technology. But they were getting closer. In 1997, they released Rebirth, which was pretty much a software rack synthesizer. They were really trying to bring synthesizers to computers, which was something that you can just barely make happen. You know, you might have like a filter and an oscillator, but that was about it. But Peter was a hardware genius. He knew the perfect combination to make hardware and software sound incredible together. So with Rebirth, they really did their best and they really got really close. It was a pretty good software. Now, they really wanted to implement MIDI and make it so that if you connected a MIDI controller, keyboard, or pad controller, you can bang on the pads or hit the keys and it'll play the synthesizer in the software. But back then, latency wasn't so great. You know, you'll hit the pad and 4 seconds later it'll trigger. You know what I'm saying? Latency still wasn't up to par when it came to combining the computer and hardware gear. So they decided to go the safe route and make it a step sequencer, which was pretty smart. You know, it's kind of like, remember when OnlyFans decided to remove porn to make it kind of more, I guess, environmentally friendly to its advertisers? And then all of a sudden they lost like $1 billion that night. And they was like, hold on, who the hell made this decision? And then at the same time, a lot of their advertisers that they were trying to make the environment safe for decided to leave them. And I think in about a couple of days, it might not have even have been like 4 days, but they immediately went back to putting porno right back on that app. they started promoting chicks twerking like if their life depended on it. You know what I mean? As soon as you got on the joint, you would see ass. But ladies and gentlemen, give it a couple of years and the millennium is now upon us. The ball has dropped and the year 2000 is here. And these three cats, the Propellerheads, they gathered up all their resources, all their know-how and gear and software knowledge. They put it together to release what would be to them the perfect DAW. And that DAW, ladies and gentlemen, was Reason. It has a 14-input automated digital mixer. It has a 99-note polyphonic analog synthesizer, a classic throwback Roland style drum machine. It has a sample playback unit, an analog style step sequencer, a loop player, a multi-track sequencer. It has 8 effect processors and over 500 megabytes of sample sounds and synth patches. This thing was everything. Producers fell in love with this unit. They really loved Reason, and it was because it was kind of like a throwback to the old hardware rack units. You know, the guys that were used to going behind their rack units and hooking everything up, they loved Reason to a point. Reason had that feature. If you push the tab button, it reverses and you see the back of the unit, so you can connect your modulators into your sampler into your synthesizer into your effects module. This thing was a hardware producer's dream, and it sounded really good. It really sounded good. Like other software, when you heard the sound, it just, it sounded too tingy. It sounded like, a little bit offish. It sounded like things that came off of a computer. But when you listen to Reason, no pun intended, when you listen to the Reason sound, it sounds like it came from hardware. It sounds like it came from an analog hardware sampler or something like that. It really sounds good. You have a lot of bottom, great bass. Reason was the ultimate hardware guy's DAW. It was winning all kind of awards from all kind of magazines and articles. They were just throwing awards at Reason, and Reason had a great consumer base. Since 1996, the Propellerhead guys were on the internet building forums. They were getting all the old Roland TR-808 users and stuff. They were actually searching for them and saying, hey, come to our Propellerhead forum, man. We have a lot of software we're developing, and we would love to just show you our process. So the workflow of Reason is pretty simple on a surface level. You see, when you load it up and you're on the main rack page where you just see the main rack, all you really have to do is just start putting in whatever devices you want to put in the rack. You know what I'm saying? So you can right click and all your samplers, sequencers, synthesizers, will appear on a menu. So you can just click on whatever it is that you want to appear on the rack. Now, whatever device is on the rack has its own particular way of operating that you're going to have to figure out. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to have to start messing around with it, tweaking it to figure out how to use it. Like something like Dyreck, whenever you find what you're looking for or you create whatever you wanted to create on it, you can click the button that says move to track, and at the bottom of the rack sampler where it has your main sequencer, you have all your tracks. And you just start arranging it as you would arrange in any other DAW. You know what I'm saying? But as time went on, a funny thing happened with Reason. Yes, folks, every yin has a yang. For every positive, there's a negative. As time went on, things in the world started to change. Everything started changing, and Reason kind of stayed the same. People kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. Since it kind of modeled itself after the old school rack samplers, the funny thing was the new musician that was coming about in the early 2000s, they didn't really like old school rack samplers. They really wanted to leave those things by the side. I mean, studios started kind of getting rid of their old rack samplers to the point you'd go into a studio and you just see a pile of racks on the floor in the corner, and you ask the producer, "Hey man, what's that?" He'd be like, "Nah, that's just some junk we're getting rid of." "You want it?" And you'd look at it and be like, "Nah, it looks kind of heavy." He's like, "Looks kind of heavy? It is heavy." And you'd just be like, "Nah, I'm good." You know, folks didn't want to do all the wire connections and the patch connections in the back of the rack samplers, and that was one of Reason's #1 features. Reason was kind of like two DAWs in one. First, you have the face of Reason, which is pretty much the rack module surface that you see. But then, like I was saying, when you push the tab button and it reverses, and now you're looking at the back of the modulars, that's like a whole DAW in itself. You know, you have to figure out, okay, which patch does this go into? Okay, I stick this wire in this connection. Now let me stick it over here to make my module work. And then you turn back, and then you're playing your sample, and you're not hearing anything. Then you're like, okay, I might have did it wrong. Let me put it on this side. You turn it back, and you're thinking you got it right, but no, it's wrong again. So you're like, oh man. Then finally, after like 4 minutes, you get it. Reason was actually too close to reality. And some folks hated that. Some folks were not good with patching things and everything like that. So they just didn't want to be bothered. You know what I'm saying? And another thing that folks didn't like about Reason was, for a long time, they did not allow third-party plugins. And plugins started to get really good. I could understand in the early 2000s, you know, plugins weren't that great. So the plugins that were in Reason's plugins like Thor and Dr. Rex and everything like that sounded great. They were really great synthesizer plugins and everything. But the music software production community kind of caught up. And now you had great plugins like Nexus and Battery and, you know, all kind of things going on. Contact, and you couldn't really use it with Reason. And people started to get upset to a point, even some of the Reason users were kind of getting frustrated, and they were like, "Hey, Propellerheads, why don't you let us use plugins?" And the Propellerheads was like, "Listen, man, it's just not our way." They were just too strict. You remember like when your parents, when you would play video games all day, so your parents would punish you and they'd say, "You know what? We got something for these kids. Hey, guess what? From now on, during the week, you're not going to be allowed to play Mario or Double Dragon or any of that. You're not going to be allowed to play any video games. You have to wait till the weekend." So, you know, your parents would leave the room and give each other a high five like, "Yeah, we sure got them kids." Or at least that's what they think. Because when they went to work, man, you and your little brother or sister would go scavenging around the house like you guys were looking for dinosaur bones and stuff like that. You guys would ransack the house looking for the video games, to a point you're discovering rooms you never knew existed and different spaces in the attic and everything like that. And then you finally find the stash. But that's how Reason was treating their consumer base at the time. They were just too strict and refused to just catch up with the times. It even took them a while to actually implement audio tracks. I mean, that came out around like 2009. You know what I'm saying? But even with all this, even with all the late to the party stuff, Reason was still the #2 best-selling DAW in the United States. You would think a DAW like Logic or Ableton would have them beat, but no, Reason was still top tier. People that love Reason loved Reason, and that goes to show you how great this DAW is. You know, Reason had a serious cult-like following. You know what I'm saying? They had folks with tattoos of the logo tattooed all over their bodies and everything like that. Like when they say Reason Gang, they really mean Reason Gang. Like you have Bloods, Crips, and Reason users. You know what I'm saying? But finally around 2012, 2013, Reason started to implement third-party plugins. And people was as happy as having a day off at work. When Reason came out, it was an okay price for a DAW. It was about $340. And you know, that could be a high price to some, but it was so revolutionary that for all you were getting, you was not upset. And Reason worked on both platforms, Mac and PC. A lot of software did not work on both platforms. And Reason could handle modest computer specs. Like you didn't have to have the latest and greatest computer to operate this thing. It can operate with pretty much low computer specs. And folks really love that. So yeah, that's Propellerheads Reason. What had happened was... So this is your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to go down low in the description and get that MPC1 Hidden Strategies, where I'm giving you a free MPC 4000 sound library. It doesn't exist anymore. Over a gig of sounds. You know what I'm saying? Put that joint on your MPC1 and you are good. So this is your boy Dyreck, aka Native Shades, reminding you to like and subscribe. And I'm signing off.